Welcome to Divisive Issues, the foul-mouthed, spoiler-filled comic book podcast where we talk about comic books. I'm Sly.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Phil. No, I'm Darryl.
Darryl's here.
Yeah, Phil's out for now, so I'll have to fill in for both of us. Get it, fill in?
I think I made that joke in the liner notes.
Phil got really fat and started spewing out gas. And
Hey, spoilers, asshole. Jesus.
Oh, I said the spoiler-filled foul-mouthed podcast, asshole.
Yeah, but we always get mad at spoilers for some reason.
That's Phil's job. You are the new Phil.
Yeah.
Yelling at Sly for spoilers. Okay, so Darryl picked this one.
All right, so what comic are we doing this week? Darryl picked it out, so you can describe it for us.
We're doing Gyo by the horror master Uzumaki.
Because it's October.
I mean, not Uzumaki, Junji Ito. Uzumaki's his other story. It's like,
Yeah, Uzumaki's other book. His name is Junji Ito, you motherfucker. Gaijin.
Yeah. Last October, we did one of his stories for the manga episode, and it was the Amigara Fault, and it was a really good story, and I was telling these guys, it's like, we need to read Gyo and Uzumaki so you guys can get, like, a better sense on how, like, bizarre this guy is.
And we've almost done Gyo, like, a dozen times, and it just kept getting pushed back.
Yeah, until we're like, I guess we'll do it for Halloween, and now finally... Well, Halloween's not even here yet, but it's October, so good enough reason to do it.
It's our Spooktacular month part 2, or attempt number 2, I don't know what you want to call it.
Attempt number 2 at celebrating horror.
After the failure of last year, we're trying to fix our mistakes.
Wait, we failed last year?
It's a joke, Darryl.
Oh, okay.
Like you. Never mind. This is going great, sorry.
Phil, come back.
Phil's not here to tell us about history or whatever.
Alright, so Phil can't tell us about Japan.
Actually, Halloween was a pagan holiday.
It's technically All Hallows Eve.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Well, you can pretty much guess what the origins of like the fears of this story are, because Japan is a very fishing centric culture, so I guess they probably
Alright.
Yeah.
Let's just get into it. So, the story opens with our main character, Tadashi, and he's a scuba diver, and he's swimming in the ocean. He sees a battleship, and then some sharks swim by, and he's like, whoa! And he notices something that they're chasing. It's like this little thing that he doesn't know what it is, but he comes up onto his boat.
It moves past like a torpedo, like it's super fast.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, wow, I nearly got killed. That was so dangerous. And he's talking to his girlfriend, and his girlfriend is both one of the, like... She complains a lot, she nags him, but she's also the saddest character in the book.
Yeah.
So her big thing is that she has a really sensitive nose, and the smell of the sea makes her sick. And the same with, like, fish and everything.
Yeah.
Also, one thing that stood out to me in this scene that I thought was really funny is he escapes the sharks, jumps in the boat, and then he, like, mocks the sharks.
Yeah.
He, like, taunts them, and he's like, that's what you get. You'll have to get up pretty early in the morning to catch me. Or something
Catch
like
Tadashi.
that.
Yeah, it's like a confident shonen character. Try and kill me next time, gun.
Yeah, and he complains that she's the one who is like, let's go fishing and let's go to this fish place, but it stinks, so she's complaining about it. She's a weird character.
She's actually, she's really annoying and bitchy, but I think she's overall a well-written character, if not particularly likable, because a lot of the stories about particularly her fears and stuff like that. Like, Tadashi's more like the hero, while most of the fears play into her stuff.
Yeah, exactly. She is actually the victim of this story. Well, Tadashi's kind of like... He's kind of so absent-minded that nothing phases him too much. Like, he doesn't get scarred by anything, and she goes through hell during this whole thing.
Tadashi also is this, like, weirdly, like, immortal, invulnerable character.
Yeah, like, he's like a shonen character. He's like fucking, like, Goku, like, ends up in the fucking horror manga.
Like, I don't want to say he's like a Mary Sue, because he doesn't really, like, accomplish anything.
But he's kind of like Mary Sue in that he's just ultra loyal, ultra likable. Like, he doesn't have any characteristics besides being
he's very clearly a vessel for the reader to experience the whole story, since we're like stuck in his viewpoint and we can't jump around. It's like, well, he has to go everywhere, so therefore he has to be immortal to what is happening.
But not even just that, the fact that he's like an everyday man. Like, he's exceptionally heroic and exceptionally loyal to Kaori. Even like during the darkest times of the story, he is loyal to her and wants to protect her and save her.
How many love stories have you read, Sly? In Japanese?
It's still like he's definingly heroic. I wouldn't call him like an everyman.
He's everyman heroic in like a romantic sense, at least.
Darryl likes to imagine himself like if my girlfriend became like Harry, I would fucking love her.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying a lot of stories are like written like this, where it's about like this undying love to someone. That's like, I'll follow you to the ends of the earth, because
undying, because nothing can touch this fucking guy.
Yeah, I would define it more like as a hero type more than like an everyday man type of character. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that shows Sly's pessimism for the human race.
Or he's like a hero, someone that will stick by you when you're sick.
He can't be an everyman because people are shit.
Yeah.
So she's arguing with him, and she's like, I want to leave Okinawa, I want to go back to Tokyo, and he's like, well, why don't you just leave then? And so she's like, fine, I will, and she walks outside.
Oh, this is after their big fight that starts because apparently he has bad breath.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, let me kiss you. And she's like, no, you have terrible breath. And he's like, I can't just kiss you once. And she's like, no, your breath is so bad that you have to brush your teeth literally before every single kiss.
Yeah.
And he's like, why haven't you told me this? And she's like, we weren't together long enough for me to tell you this, but now that we have been, you
like
smell
that,
so bad.
that they move in and she reveals this to him.
And it's almost like the catalyst to this whole thing.
Yep, she brought it on herself. So she screams outside after she left to go home, and he runs after her, and she says that there was something like scuttling nearby, and you see like this big swoosh through the grass. And
they
so
make a big spoilers. The walking fish make a fish sound as they walk. By the way,
yeah,
that's true.
So he brings her back into the house, and she takes a shower, but then the fish is there in the shower with her, and she passes out. So then Tadashi has to chase it through the house, and he eventually gets it behind like a dresser, and then smashes it with the dresser. And then it has like this almost full page spread of just this mashed fish with these weird, like, it looks like organic legs on it, but they're like, they're artificial. They're like, they look like
they really are on the artificial, which is kind of weird because my
it's not like artificial like you'd think like prosthetics or something. It's like
it looks like something out of like H.R. Geiger, like Aliens type of stuff. But like originally, what I thought this were like other creatures bonding to these fish. Because the fish are they make it pretty
spoilers
clear
that is what it is.
the fish are pretty clearly dead. It's really these walking legs that are controlling everything.
Yeah,
but they're not like an ancient Eve or anything. There's a very weird explanation for it.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I do want to point out is usually we open these shows with talking a little bit about the art, but I love it a lot.
Yeah, the art is what makes this story for me.
He is so good. Yep, exactly. He is a really good artist, and all of his pages are really detailed, and he has like a masterful hand at doing like cross-hatching and outlining characters, or like things that just look really grotesque and horrendous.
The designs for like the legs and stuff are super detailed, but and like just look really, really cool, but the animals look super realistic. Like I think the fish are like really, really well drawn. And like and all the characters are very distinct, and it's just the detail is even in the backgrounds and everything is really great to me.
And I love the way Junji Ito draws humans, because like it's anime style, but it feels a lot more realistic than most anime style.
Yeah,
like the eyes are still anime, but and they're still like kind of like soft looking people, but they actually have a realistic feel to them.
Yeah, they look like people just with like, larger eyes.
Yeah, and one of my problems with a lot of manga and anime that I've seen or read is I feel like a lot of, especially the women, look the same, and I never got any characters confused in this book.
Oh yeah, I agree
could easily tell them all apart.
So after he smashes this walking fish, he takes it outside, and he just drops it in the grass because he wants to keep it because he's like, this is a new type of species. They have to like take it to someone, but it really stinks to him. And so he goes inside, and his girlfriend starts complaining. It's like, I can still smell it. It's really bad and stinky. And she's like naked and crawling on the floor towards him while explaining this. And she's like, you have to get rid of it. Put it in a bag and like absolutely get rid of it. So he's like, okay, fine. So he puts it in a bag, and then later on, this fish comes back threw a window in the inflated bag because it was stinking so much it filled the bag with gas.
Yeah.
And it's like this kind of silly scene of this bag with this dead fish in it floating in, and then his girlfriend Kaori just starts freaking out and like screaming and leaving the house, and he's just trying to like shoo it away, but it keeps chasing her.
And I love the way this is introduced because she's like, it still smells, and he's like, well, we can't get rid of it. This is scientifically important. So he goes outside to just move it farther away from the window, and that's when it flies into the apartment.
And also, that's worth noting, part of Kiari's bitching, aside from all this bitching about smells, she also is very jealous. She's very insecure about her relationship with Tadashi. And she's like, you care more about that fish than you do me. You fuck you. Mm-hmm. And that jealousy comes up later on.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he chases out, and then it goes out to sea, like into the air. And then, while he's standing on the beach, looking around, he sees two other things scuttling towards the beach, and it's three more walking fish. And then it's the next day, and he's trying to explain to the police that there were walking fish, and of course the police don't believe him. It's like, walking fish? How could you?
Also, Kiari won't back him up. She's like, you just care about a stupid fucking fish. I'm still sick, you fucking asshole.
Yeah, he's like, talk to them, Kiari, and she's like, So then he yells at her, and she's like, I have a fever, give me a break. And then it starts showing fishermen out on the sea start pulling up walking fish, and they're dumping walking fish like onto their boat, and they're like, whoa, what is happening? And it goes to like a beach scene, which is like our classic, Jaws trope of
get out of the water.
Yeah, people playing in the water. They see the fin. They're like, yeah, the water. So everyone gets out, and they're like, oh, this is fine. And then they're like, that's weird. The shark is still coming for us. And then it goes half above water, and then the rest of it, you see the big walking legs go above water.
Yeah, it's like a huge version of the fish legs.
Yeah, this is like the first scary scene, and it is the way he draws the shark, like, because you kind of have the POV of the like people on the beach, and you just see this giant shark coming at you. It's really awesome.
And we should note too that these walking machines have like pipes and tubes that go into the gills of the fish, and for like the shark, there's like 8 pipes on each side going into the gills. It looks very like unnatural and painful.
Yeah.
So then the shark ends up going to Tadashi's house while he's taking care of a sick Kaori. And it goes up, and it starts like trying to find a way into his house. And it it busts through a door, and it tries chasing him down a hallway, but it's so big like it can barely fit. And then while this is going on, there's a whole bunch of walking fish that are bombarding basically like the city, like stampeding through it. So they can't like go out into the streets just yet. Mm-hmm. So then there's like news reports going on about how like the walking fish are stampeding through Okinawa. And
I like how they talk about the economic damages caused by this event. It's very true to life. Like people are fucking dying because these fish. And it's like, look at the economic damage here.
The entire city's not doing any business at all.
I know, but like there's a big concern, like these fucking fish.
Oh yeah, that there's a huge loss of life, and people are like, we're not, making money.
Yeah. Very true to real life.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I gotta be anti-capitalist. I mean, I gotta be pro-capitalist, dang it.
You gotta be Phil for our...
It's just realism, Sly. So then, Tadashi says, I need to go see my uncle about this.
And his uncle is the one who he borrowed the house from. Like, he owns this house that they're staying in Okinawa. Yeah.
And now they're back in Tokyo.
Yeah, they went to Tokyo, they left Okinawa. And he goes to see him, and this guy's like, he's got like, the long... untamed hair, and he's kind of like creepy looking.
He's an inventor. He looks like a fucking inventor from like a Japanese manga. If you ever seen one?
Yeah. He's one of those where he's so like loyal to his work that he doesn't even watch the news. He just works all day. So Tadashi starts telling him about this, like, there's these walking fish, and he's like, oh, that's really interesting. Do you have a specimen? He's like, no, I don't. But then, luckily, Tadashi goes back to see Kaori, and she starts screaming at him again how she can, like, smell that the smell's still here, even though there's no walking fish around. And she's like, I'm not crazy. You won't listen to me. And then, as he's chasing her, she starts running away again. She collapses in the street, and he notices up high in the sky is the fish that was in the bag.
Yeah, he followed them to Tokyo.
Yeah. And so it starts coming down to them again. And the bag eventually pops, and out comes just a completely, like, decaying, dead fish with no eyes and its spine showing that's still attached to the legs.
Okay, this part is so weird because Tadashi keeps saying to her, like, oh, it's just you can't get the smell out of your memory. And then this fish shows up, and she keeps saying this, and he's like, oh, that was just a coincidence that it happened to show up here. It's the only one. It's still just a memory. The smell's just a memory. Like, if this bag showed up, I would maybe believe her at this point.
Yeah, that she can smell them before anyone else can.
She has the most sensitive nose in all of
Yeah, it's her
Tokyo.
superpower. Why won't anyone believe me? So then he brings the bag to his uncle. They open up the bag, and it's super stinky. We should emphasize that a big part of this series is that this really smells bad, like decaying.
Yeah, it smells
dead,
like
rotten
everyone
flesh.
says it smells terrible. Like, what does that smell? That's how you could tell the creatures are nearby. That's one of the most important parts of the story. Yes.
Yep. So then he brings it to his uncle. His uncle explains, like, he tells him this weird story about, like, how his father wanted to be cremated because he didn't want anyone to ever smell, like, his death scent.
Yeah, because he says the fish smells like a human corpse.
Yeah, which was like I wonder why his father thought that.
And Koyunagi, like the uncle, that's how he knows what it smells like. He says the fish smells like a dead human corpse because that's how my father smelled when I found him working late, 3 days after he died or something like that.
Yeah,
He had a heart attack and no one found him until 3 days later. And then while this Tadashi goes back to Shikiori, who's having like a cockroach scuttles out of their closet, and she thinks it's a fish, but it's just a cockroach. And
It's a nice bait and switch.
Yeah, I think that's the author's way of saying, like, well, she's not, like, always right. Like, she is pretty traumatized and hallucinating. And so it cuts back to the uncle who's dissecting the fish, and he detaches, like, the corpse of the fish from the legs. And he's like, this is interesting. Is this part of the fish? And then as he reaches over to see it, it has these, like a dozen pincers on both
It's kind of like a
sides.
rib cage.
Yeah,
Like,
like a rib cage or like a hair clip that like closes
exactly.
around the body.
Yep. So as he reaches down to see it, it clips onto his arm, and he can't get it off of himself.
And starts warping it. This is where they learned that it's a separate creature. The legs are separate from the fish. The fish is just like a host for these legs.
Mm-hmm.
So this to me was the first like big cliffhanger, and I was like, what's gonna happen to Uncle? And then the next chapter starts with the uncle just calling them on the phone, like, hey, come over, I got something to show you.
I thought that was like a false sense of security, and it's gonna reveal he's like became a zombie or something like that.
Yeah.
But he's just casual about like, hey, come over.
No, they show like both him and his assistants have like shadows under their eyes, like they haven't been sleeping.
But then, like, the conversation is pretty regular.
That's true.
Like,
He does dump a bunch of lore on them, which is like yeah.
So this is when he has the big exposition dump where he explains that during the Pacific War, that's what he calls it. I guess that's World War II?
Yeah, World War II.
Yeah. So during World War II, his dad, the one that he found dead in the factory, was part of this like scientific experimental crew, and they discovered this germ that whenever you put it in an animal, it would create like copious amounts of noxious gas.
Yeah, in their tissues and their stomach.
Yeah.
And it smells like a dead human body.
Yeah, and they tried to turn this into a weapon by what they would do is they would get these animals sick, like dogs and cats, and march them into enemy territory. And now this part, to me, I had a little difficulty with the tone here. Because
as they start explaining it more and more, is like I'll admit my final thoughts a little bit here. I think the story gets worse as it keeps going, and this is kind of like the first puncture as they start explaining more.
Oh, you think this is bad? Because I thought this was real like gruesome and great.
Here's the thing. I'm in the middle here where I thought it was. Let me explain what it is. So it's these dogs.
You're always in the middle, Ryan.
It's these dogs walking through an enemy battlefield, and they're spraying this noxious gas everywhere, but it's shooting out of their mouths and their butts.
Yeah.
And it to me, like, it's gruesome that they're torturing these animals like this, but at the same time, like, they're farts. They're big farts and burps.
Yeah.
But it's coming out like a plume. It's kind of really silly.
It's also really silly because we figured this out during the Middle Ages. Like, this is why they dumped cow carcasses with fucking trebuchets and shit into, like, fortresses. Like, it's very easy to transport a fucking a rotting animal into enemy territory.
But
like, you don't need to create...
But it's like forever farting.
But like it's like the premise is weird. Like the experiments they create makes no sense. They fart, and also I think they explain too much of it, and it's really a weird explanation. And I think a key part of horror is you shouldn't know too much about it. Like too much explanation.
They do keep some like where did the germ come from, and later on they kind of like hint it's like maybe this is like an alien type of thing.
They do, but that makes it more convoluted. The other things they add to it, like it's just the story gets more and more convoluted and weird and goofy as it keeps going.
See, I liked the farting, pooting gas stuff because it's such a weird, unnatural thing you wouldn't see in, like, Western media. Like, no one would be like, here's this gas weapon, do you know it comes out of your orifices, including your butthole? Like, no one would try and illustrate that, but he's like, this is, like, realistic. As you're walking around, it'd be coming out of your mouth and your butt.
But it just looks silly.
Yeah.
True, but again, like, it's this weird, like, gruesome way of looking at it. It's sort of like if you found a relative dead on the toilet that had pooped like their pants or something. It's like that's like, you know, that's something we're used to thinking as humans.
Why would they be on the toilet if they poop their pants?
They couldn't get it down in time.
They got a toilet. They were too late. They pulled their pants out.
Oh no, I'm dying. But it's like you think it's like funny, but it's actually like really dark, like a later scene.
Yeah.
We'll continue later because we can go into our final thoughts. But I do kind of get where Darryl is coming from, and it's half of my thoughts on this overall story.
Yeah. So anyway, the animals apparently they weren't going far enough before the animals would just drop dead. So they built these machines that were the legs that are powered by the gas.
Again, instead of just having like planes or trebuchets, like anything, they have to create like walking spider legs to carry these.
I think the spider legs are way creepy.
Yeah, these are like autonomous things. You don't need planes. You just like put these guys down and they destroy a countryside.
But it's such a what a roundabout. Like you don't need this for the solution. Like what a convoluted.
No, but the legs are important because what happens is after the thing dies, the legs keep it moving. So it's not like you just drop missiles on a place. It's missiles that then keep moving across the entire country.
Yeah. It'd be like a fire that doesn't stop burning.
Yeah, exactly. So all the prototypes that they had that they were bringing over the boat, a U.S. plane sunk them all, and they sunk to the bottom of the ocean. So that's obviously where all the fish came from. And Kaori, hearing this story, gets super nauseous and runs to the bathroom and sees that she's developing boils all over her skin.
Yeah.
And she passes out again. She's always passing out.
She's always running away from her boyfriend and passing out.
Yeah.
This is not a heroic female protagonist story.
No.
Again, she's the victim. She's trying to get away and she can't and she passes out.
So this time she passes out because of, I think, one of the creepiest things in the whole book. It's the uncle's arm dismembered, walking with the legs on it, all like rotten and weird, coming at her.
Yeah, and all the tubes are tied in, like, are punctured into his arm.
Yeah. So then the uncle, back at the uncle's exposition dump, he's explaining that the tubes on the machine are what happens is the animals are making all this gas, and then the tubes take out the gas and power the legs. That's why the bag filled up with the fish in it, because it was leaking all this gas.
Yeah.
And this is when it's revealed he's just like, oh yeah, I cut off my arm to study it, and like it shows him like freshly cut off the arm and like still like dissecting it and stuff.
He wants to cut it off because he don't want any virus it might have to spread to his body,
because the germ spreads very, very quickly. And he points out that the fish are all dead, just like his arm is dead. So it's not like the fish's fault. It's the germs are controlling everything. And the germs are alive. And it's implied that the germs are sentient. That's how they know how to walk. And it's more than just like, you know, zombie instinct. They seem to actually have like semi-sentient thought process.
See, for me, like, I understood and I was down with using this, like, death stench, which is referred to in this book, as like a weapon in warfare, like a chemical weapon. But then when it's like sentient germs, I was like, this is like a jump I don't know if I can make.
Yeah, like, and it gets even weirder from here.
Oh yes,
when they reveal that ghosts are involved.
Spoilers.
I like, honestly, that's one of my problems with the story is it gets further and further away from the original premise of walking fish. I thought the original premise was going to be these creatures attach these fish. They're walking on land now. And the death stench was just the fact that they're carrying around corpses of them. But now we have to bring in germs and ghosts and stuff into it, and I'm like, this is getting weird for no reason.
I kind of liked how weird it got, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, it's a trip. Again, this is the kind of like specialness you can only find in Japanese media sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. So Tadashi now goes home to find Kaori locked up in her room, and she's hiding under the covers.
And there's a stench coming from her room.
And he's almost like, I thought you hated the stench. Now it's fine.
Yeah,
and
now
then
you submerge yourself in it?
Yeah, and then she pulls off the blanket, and she's like disgusting. Like, she's covered in boils. She looks like
she's bloated.
She's
really
bloated. It's like really, really gross. And then the fish are swarming the city now. So there's like millions and millions of these fish. And
also, the military tries to kill these fish, but they always use fucking like AK-47s and stuff. Like
say bombs.
Yeah, like why can't they? Like, I'm not saying like they would have worked, but they didn't even test if like firebombing these fish will work. They usually like try to shoot. They don't even shoot at the legs. They shoot at the fish. Like even when they realize the fish aren't what's causing the problem.
Yeah, I mean they are in the middle of Tokyo. They probably don't want to firebomb Tokyo.
But even by the end, even when Tokyo's fucking gone.
That's true. That's true.
Spoilers. A lot of people. First of all, it takes them a long time to. I kind of realized the legs were a problem. Like page 10 of the story. It takes characters forever to realize it. I kind of realized it's probably the smell of a rotting corpse pretty early. Like, what else smells that terrible besides these fucking fish that look like they're?
I don't know. Have you ever smelled a rotting corpse? I haven't.
I know, but these fish are rotting. And
yeah,
like,
but then how do they know where to go unless they're being driven? You know, the legs.
Yeah.
Like no one suspects germs to be the main enemy.
A lot of the characters in the story seem pretty dumb. Like even when Tadashi, he doesn't make connections that like I figure out pretty early. Kaori's sick. She's having pus pop on her skin randomly. She has a fever this whole entire time, and now it smells in the room. And Tadashi's still like, "Oh, why are you smelling so bad?" Kaori like he doesn't make a connection.
I mean, like when I was reading a bunch of the manga stuff for the horror month, this is like just the most common thing in all the stories is that there's always people asking these obvious questions that like you as the reader are already aware of.
Yeah.
We're like, how can you be saying this if you died like a week ago? It's like, well, they're a ghost or a zombie or whatever.
Yeah. So Kaori, disgusted with herself as she sees herself in the mirror and realizing that the stink is coming from her, she tries to jump off the balcony. Tadashi stops her, but then she runs away and hangs herself later. And this is one of the creepiest pages to me because it's like gross zombie body like just hanging there. And she's so bloated and heavy that she breaks the rope herself.
It's not just this. It's like, it's this really bizarre image of it's her hanging there, but because it's still ejecting the gas from her anus, she's spinning around really fast on the wire. Which is one of the things, like, it's kind of like funny, but in like this very dark way where it's your girlfriend trying to kill herself, but she's just spinning around on this, the lamp above them.
I think the dark, creepy, unsettling humor of this works very well here. Maybe not when it's a dog just with his mouth open with farts coming out.
I don't think it works here or most of the story from this point on. I think this is where the story starts veering off the edge for me.
Okay, so anyway, Tadashi's trying to bring her to the hospital, and it's actually really sweet, I think, this part, because she's like dying and like obviously like just at the brink of death, and he's like trying to get a car, he's trying to call the hospital, and he's like, I'll just take you, and he puts her on his back and he's just like running through this like horrible war zone carrying her there.
Even though she's sick, he's still willing to protect her.
Yeah, even though she's sick, it seems like she's fucking dead now at this point.
Yeah,
like she's not breathing, I don't think.
Yeah, and they get attacked by a walking shark, but he escapes and brings Kaori to his uncle. The uncle's like, I'll drive her to the hospital, you go to your parents' house. And as on his way, a squid grabs him and goes to drag him away.
Which is also really weird. Like, it just, like, they don't really grab people except for this one scene. But the squid grabs him and carries him away.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
And Yeah, that's, Squid's gonna
Got
swim.
me, Sly. I can't defend it.
And he's in his rush to break away, he falls over a ledge and falls into a pit filled with like the fish of all sizes, and the little ones start crawling all over him. And that's what ends volume 1.
Yeah. I do want to say that the pit that Tadashi falls into the end is kind of creepy because it's like all these tiny little fish everywhere swarming him.
It's like fish of all sizes. They kind of look like little tiny bugs. So I guess if you had
I thought they were bugs at first.
Yeah, fear of fish.
Like that's a really creepy visual. I kind of wish the story did more of that.
Okay, so while he's in this pit, all of a sudden the gases coming out of all the fish form these faces, and in this scene, I took it more as hallucination, but apparently later on it's not.
No, these are the ghosts. The gas is powered by dead ghosts.
He's wondering if it's the souls of the dead from World War II in the gas, and one forms the face of Kaori, and then he wakes up in the hospital. So I took it as like this was doctors looking over him and stuff, like, and he's hallucinating it.
And of course, like he sees Kaori because he wants to be with her again.
Yeah, exactly. So he wakes up in the hospital, and he's been unconscious for a month. And so in this time period, the fish have swarmed the entire world. Everywhere is under martial law, and when he runs out, like the streets are filled with the military, and there's like gas everywhere. And he visits his uncle, who tells him that Kaori is dead. And so he goes back to his house that night, and then his uncle's assistant, Miss Yoshiyama, comes to him, says, "I can't lie to you anymore. I have to tell you the truth, even though it's only been one page." And
that's the secret for one day I kept. But to be fair, for her, it's been a month, and like I guess it's been haunting her that she has to tell somebody.
I guess I hadn't thought of that. It from a reading perspective, it happens very quickly.
From a narrative like perspective.
Yeah, it is literally one page.
Yeah. Kaori is still alive, and she's hooked up to a much more complicated version of this walking machine. Mm-hmm. Apparently, she's been in a coma this whole time, and his uncle had built this extra powerful walking machine
with stainless steel and like all this fancy gadgetry.
Yeah, she's curled up in kind of like this fetal position, strapped down to it, and in her mouth are 2 tubes that are sewn to her lips, and then she's also got one up her butt. Which I think like that some of that stuff is like the horror stuff, like this body horror of your body being invaded with tubes. It's
definitely going like being returned to this grotesque monstrosity. Mm-hmm. I do think, especially with Koyonagi's design, they look more goofy than they should have been, like curled up in the fetal position, their butts hanging out, tubes with their butts. Like later on, Koyonagi, there's another different machine where you're more like a spread eagle, like crucified on these machines, and they did that a bit more like creepy, less goofy, I think.
But I mean, how is it supposed to make sense when it's like grabbing you? I guess you want them to be like spread out, like hunched over the machine, because the machines are so small. You have to be.
Well, it doesn't make much sense because the way they get grabbed is by the gas. The way the gas grabs you is the gas. The gas comes alive, makes hands, and picks you up and forces you onto these machines. So we're talking about things not making sense. I think we're past that point.
I don't know. I think the fetal position, like smushed up, like and like tied up to this machine is creepy.
Yeah, it makes them look like more pitiful and pathetic.
When you see later on, they have swarms of these, and there's all a bunch of people's butts just hanging out there. You're like, this is creepy and not goofy.
The thing is, like, I think the butts are silly and goofy, but once you accept the premise that like the gas is coming out of their butts, if you're gonna accept that it's coming out of all their orifices, then like. Once I got over that and stopped like giggling every time there was a butt crack, like I think that this is the more creepy way to handle it, because she's like smushed up into this ball that like
she's like constricted and bound, which would make you feel uncomfortable.
Why would Koyanagi put her like this? Like you can argue the gas might do it, but why Koyanagi put her like this before any of the other humans got converted? By the way, too,
because you need to.
She was the first one that we saw like this.
I know, but
like, why did he do this instead of making her spread eagle?
Yeah, like why does he have dignified one for himself?
She's more aerodynamic.
Maybe he was just trying to emulate the other walkers. He's like, I guess you have to be balled up? I don't know.
But then he doesn't do it for the other one? I don't know.
Well, the other one's after he already learned how to make those machines.
Okay, so that's he perfected it.
Yeah, he perfected it. He found spread eagle was much better than balled up.
Yeah. But anyway, he listened to Sly's advice.
Yeah.
But anyway, Tadashi is obviously like super messed up about this. And the uncle has no problem with it. He's like, no, look, I've done experiments. Isn't this cool? And he hits a button and she starts running around. And Tadashi wants to unhook her from this. And when he goes to do that, the gas and the germs like flip out and go to run away. And in the process, she stabs the uncle.
Yeah, she tramples him, and since all these legs are like little thin needles, it pierces his stomach.
And then Tadashi goes after her, and now like there's so much gas in the streets, it's like a fog everywhere, and the fish now are starting to die off because they're like super rotten. So we're starting to see like dogs and people are now infected by it, and it's like they're almost evolving in front of us, and it's really creepy. And some of the people are hooked up to legs, but some people are still like acting normal.
I like that it shows that there's people in this like quarantine, gas zone that they're just bloated and they just live here now, like, and they're just constantly spewing gas from their mouth and their butt.
And there's an interesting point where Tadashi asks one of them like for directions or something, and the guy helps him, and Tadashi's like disgusted and he's like taken aback that this guy wasn't like a villain, and he's like, oh, thanks, and he like runs away. And it's just like, it's this, I really like this like status quo of it's not the full apocalypse, like
it's like a casual apocalypse slowly like coming down upon them, and they don't know how to react, basically.
Yeah, it's like a mid stage of it.
Yeah, because it's especially after he was unconscious for a month. Like, that's how The Walking Dead starts, too. It's an easy way to skip that and just have, like, oh, everyone's zombies now. But still showing the mid-steps are really interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
So Tadashi, he sees, because like Ryan said, like he meets one of these fat gas people, but they're act normal, like, hey, what's up? And he sees one of them.
Sorry about the smell.
He sees one of them start blowing towards a pair of empty walking legs, and they join together. So like I said, the gas literally like forms his hands and picks people up and puts them into these machines. Mm-hmm. The ground's now.
The one guy that they show go into the machine, I didn't see like arms on him. It just seemed like he was kind of like stumbling over.
Yeah, they reveal that later, but like that's what they reveal eventually. That's how it works. But at first, it just seems like he's just flying towards it.
Yeah. Like,
but and now because there's all these abandoned machines because the fish are all dead, the ground's like a minefield of legs aching to grab onto a host, and they pinch Tadashi's legs.
Mm-hmm. It's fun.
And one soldier's like shooting at all the walking human host leg thingies, and like I said, he doesn't shoot the legs; he shoots the fucking human beings on them. And Tadashi like, stop shooting the fucking humans. And the guy's like, oh, if you don't stop me, if you try to stop me, I'll shoot you too, motherfucker. And Tadashi's like, okay, I don't want to problem, man.
I want to bring up, there's this one page that it's really brief, but it kind of properly portrays the horror of this world, is that after Tadashi gets his foot pinched, there's another guy screaming for help who's completely normal, but all the teeth keep trying to bite onto him. And so he's got one on his head, two on his arms, one on his thigh, and it's just like this horror nightmare of walking through like these bear traps. What it must be.
Yeah,
like.
that is a really creepy visual. Thanks for pointing that out. But another creepy visual is actually another fat bloated guy shows up to them and says, "Oh, help me! It's coming!" And a giant figure appears in the fog-like smelly air. It's actually, and it's a giant pair of legs. And instead of one person, it's like a ball of people hooked up to this one machine. Basically,
it was the legs from one of the sharks.
Exactly.
Yep. And since there were like 8 tubes in the sharks, now there's 8 tubes all connecting to different people that it's keeping clasped there.
And this is a creepy visual because this is a very standard visual of like a ball of writhing massive humanity, and it's very creepy here with the top of these legs.
That's the thing, is even the stuff we said about like how some things are goofy and stuff like that, if it was a different artist, this stuff wouldn't work at all.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I want to say Junji Ito, if this was any other artist, this would not have any creepy factor whatsoever. Even like the goofier stuff have a creep factor just because of the way Junji Ito draws it.
Yeah, and even the bad stories I've read of his, I still like finish because I like his art so much. I want to see what he does with like, where it does like a full page of this gruesome looking thing. Like I always love that stuff.
There is a movie adaptation of this. I haven't watched it. I haven't watched it because it's an anime movie adaptation. I haven't watched it because it's CGI sharks and fish.
Oh man,
and
it's CGI?
There's no way to fucking make that work.
Yeah, I feel like
I think you're thinking of Sharknado.
That's what it looks like when you see the trailer. It looks like Sharknado. Also, one weird thing is they also make Cairo the main character instead of Tadashi.
Oh, Kaori?
Kaori, yeah. They made her the main character instead of Tadashi, but they took away everything that made her Kaori. Now she's just the hero character.
Does Tadashi get trapped in the machine?
Here's a weird thing about it. Tadashi's barely a character. Like, he doesn't go with them to Okinawa. He's in Tokyo. And Kairos kind of gets back to Tokyo to meet him. By the time she gets back to Tokyo, he's already a fucking stench monster already. Mm-hmm. So like he's not even a character. So Tadashi's not a main character. Kairo's like a generic heroic female, and they have a bunch of new characters that are just there to die off basically.
Yeah. So it makes it more like traditional horror, I guess.
Exactly. That's what they basically did with the adaptation, and that's one thing to give credit to the story. Like, despite my faults with it, like it's not traditional horror at all, really.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of not traditional horror, we are about at the place that I was hesitant to recommend this story because this scene is so weird.
Yeah, strange music lures the creatures and Tadashi to a nearby circus tent.
Okay, first off, that's pretty weird that everyone's being lured by strange music.
Yeah. Tadashi sees a circus performed by the creatures and their hosts, and it's like you can see the leg things doing acrobatics. You can see that bloated guys playing music.
So weird.
Just think about this story about like this horrible or like mid-apocalypse world of these people, and the army fighting these people, and Tadashi stumbles upon an entire circus devoted to these creatures having fun, and like elephants are tied up with tubes in them, and they have like a cannon in the back, and they have clowns playing flutes with gas.
Yeah, they're like, do you notice how their lips aren't moving? It's because of the gas coming out and filling the flute. And it's what?
Yeah, and there's just this
the gas is making its own music basically. I actually like this is how I feel the story overall. I actually like there's so many tones going on between goofiness and like creepiness, and here you have like a weird Tim Burton like nightmare circus clown shit going on.
Yeah.
And like this will work isolated, but now it's just here in the middle of this apocalyptic story, so it's kind of
also
weird.
It's almost like you get a montage of all the different ways you could use gas because they're like, look, they use them to trapeze, or we use them to shoot people out of cannons.
Yeah, and one guy's like blowing a basketball up with it above his head.
So weird.
I don't mind the premise behind it because it's to show that the gas is alive. Like the gas is the people aren't playing music. The gas is playing music going through them.
I kind of do because it makes it seem like the gas is like way more human than it should be.
It is bad in terms of they shouldn't have introduced this element in the first place, but it's an interesting way to deliver that element.
I suppose like if you're going to do it in a creepy way, a carnival is, that's all right. That's pretty high on the creepy scale, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel about it.
The thing is, like, it's shown that the gas is sentient, but this is a level of sentience that's so
this is where it gets
so
really
much
weird.
more than the rest.
This is where it jumped the walking shark.
So a fire breather comes out and he breathes the gas out through fire, and the gas actually through the fire you can see their faces more clearly. It's like the faces he saw in the gas while he was in the pit. So it basically makes it clear like there are ghosts in the gas.
Some of them are a little more like creepy though. Like there's just a lot of like eyes and teeth. And
it's
weird
like a mask
skulls.
of like abstract faces, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And they try to grab onto Tadashi and they burn his hand, and so then they reveal a new attraction, and it's Kaori with her new fancy modern legs, and the circus is now Koyunagari, whatever his name was, did it. They think this is a new naturally created type of legs, and like how fancy it is, but Kaori is not happy being on the circus, and she shoots something from her exhaust and runs away.
She can weaponize her exhaust into like this mucus or this like thick glob.
In the movie, they make it clear that it's shit.
Oh,
I don't know if that's canon. So she poops on
I
these guys.
took it as shit.
It looks like shit.
I just thought it was like this thick, oily substance, but
it might have been because the movie doesn't take a lot of.
I mean, what else would be the exhaust of a thing that uses stink?
Wait,
I don't know.
Darryl, your shit's not a thick, oily substance.
So Tadashi chases after her, and he turns out the machine.
Oh, speaking of, and this is my other problem with the circus scene, is that's the end of the circus scene, basically.
Yeah,
other than one more like cameo at the end with the cannon.
Yeah. So then Tadashi goes to his uncle's house to unhook her. He knocks on the door, but only Miss Yoshiyama answers. And she says that Koyunagi,
his uncle,
has died from his wounds. And she locked him in his lab so he could die of his work like his dad. Which is stupid because that creates a lot of problems later on for him. And then here, the casually just dropped that she had the house from the entire time, but he was too busy being burned in his work to notice her. Like, it's a Reed Richards Storm situation.
And also, they were trying to, like, get Kaori out of the machine. And she starts clipping away the stitching that's her lips when they're sewn to the pipes. Then she starts pulling on the pipe to get it out of her mouth, and it starts to rip her entire, like, upper lip off. And
she's just a rotted corpse at this point.
It's just such a gross scene. And she's like, I'm sorry about this. And he's like, don't worry about it. I know. And she's like, she's dead.
Yeah, but he says, I want to cremate her body, but we also should cremate Koyunagi's body. Mm-hmm. So they go...
Instead of keeping them like these disgusting things.
Yeah, so then he's like, wait, you lock him inside his building. He's not going to find a way to break into his fucking building now. So something's moving around. Like, Tadashi breaks into the window. It's pitch black in there. Something's moving around. And it turns out Koyunagi's hooked up to a second, better machine that seems to be attached to a blimp.
It looks kind of like a bed with legs, with the teeth holding him in above it, and below it, it also has teeth to hold something.
Yeah. And he's, like I said, he's like cross spread out on this thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to peek behind the curtain too much, but I'm looking at Sly's notes right now, and he says that he's attached to a blump, and it's maybe my favorite typo I've ever seen.
Attached to a blumpkin.
Which would be fitting for this story.
So Koyanagi chases after them while shooting more shit, his own shit out of his exhaust.
Yeah, we should mention that he's not only attached to this machine, it doesn't really walk, he's literally attached to a blimp, and he starts flying around, bombarding them, and the chapter's called, the Death Stench Air Raid. It's so weird.
It's so weird.
And then Tadashi suggests maybe Koyanagi's jealous because he sees him and Miss Yoshiyama together, and he's like, "Oh, we have to make it clear. No, we're not together. We're just friends." Because Koyanagi's now jealous.
Yeah, this comes out of fucking
nowhere. And this is another creepy element of the story, which now that we've gone, it's like a circus. Now that we've gone in this direction, it kind of works. Kaori sees them together and reveals like she's in this grotesque mockery of humanity. She's still kind of alive.
Yeah, it closes the panels close up on her eyes, and you start to see them like water, and her eyes are like completely dead and white.
Yeah, and she turns on the machine herself, and she goes after Miss Yoshiyama. So that's a really horrifying idea. The fact that if she was dead, that'd be something else. But she's still alive in this grotesque mockery, of humanity here.
Yeah,
which makes Tadashi want to save her all the more.
Yeah.
Like, to not save her, but, like, to end her suffering.
Yeah, so she chases after Yoshiyama. She pushes her outside the building, and that's where Koyanagi attaches the extra leg things below him and grabs her and flies away with her.
Yeah, he grabs her with the teeth, and then she's just gone with him.
She's out of story. She's probably dead, I guess. So the other creatures... so Kaori gets swarmed by all the other creatures, and... they attack her and rip her apart, and it turns out they're jealous of her legs or something like that. Like they're threatened by her.
Yeah, because they're
legs.
They bring out the cannon, and they're also trying to shoot down the uncle in his blimp, because apparently it's
fucking hilarious. I want to describe it.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
They have the circus cannon. It's powered by fat bloated guys. They basically flip the cannon and they shoot out a dude. She's out one of the fat dudes. And so they shoot out a fat dude at Koyanagi's blimp to take him down too. And they hits, but Koyanagi was smart. He had a failsafe. He had bat wings that fly after.
That was so dumb. That was such a Batman thing. Like, I planned for my blimp to get shot down, and now I have wings.
You know what's funny? In the movie, they never show what happens to Koyanagi's body. All happens is he dies. He's gone first in the movie. And then at the end, the final credits scene, before the credits roll, you see him flying in the distance on this thing. I'm like, if anyone doesn't know how to read the manga, they'll be very confused by that.
Yeah. Which, so they're establishing that these machines don't like the new version of the machines that have people in them, which is kind of like this weird, so do the germs fight each other.
Yeah, this is one of those weird things because now it's raising a lot of questions I never answered. It explains so much and raising many questions I never answered.
This is 20 pages from the end of the story.
No, it's just like Toy Story. They're threatened by the new and improved technology.
Yeah.
This is exactly like Toy Story.
But why introduce that so late into the
last
story?
issue,
last chapter?
Yeah. So now the landscape is swarmed by the creatures. The air is just fucking thick with this stench. It's fucking fogged up as shit. You can't see human beings anywhere.
They show a parade of the entire, like, all the people marching with, like, some sharks and the giant, like, gross gobs of the mountain of people on the shark machines. Looks cool.
When you see them all marching together, like, the asses hanging out, this is when I'm always like, this is kind of silly what I'm reading right here.
It is silly, but it's kind of like, it's really sad that this is what humanity is going to become.
Yeah, it is. There's an element of that too. It's kind of like it kind of works. It's kind of like Cross, where it's so fucked up and depressing, I guess.
Yeah.
But so as Josh is walking, other survivors from Kyoto University show up, and they theorize that this has to be like the legs had to have like what Darryl said, they had to be naturally man-made, naturally made in some way, because they didn't make these many legs of all these different sizes. Like, something had to happen after they landed in the ocean. And
one thing that they keep saying throughout the book that I think is really cool is there's no screws or seams. Like, they're all like, they're even though they're made of metal, they look organic.
I also like that they brought up, because I was thinking about the same thing too, is how they sunk that ship that dropped all the legs to the bottom of the ocean. They said there's no way that there could be like more than 600 legs on there, let alone 6 billion. Like, enough for the entire human race. Because, well, this is going on overseas across the entire world, not just Japan.
Yeah. And they're all like fucking, like we said, like fucking shark size, fucking like bug size. Mm-hmm. And they say like the germs must have like replicated in some weird way. So the story is ultimately about cyborg fish powered by fart germs, powered by ghosts. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
kinda. But instead of cyborg, it could be like, alien.
Alien cyborg fish.
Yeah.
Some people say they might be aliens.
Yeah.
The circus guy says that, and he's the most reputable.
Yeah. He was leading them. He wasn't even fat and bloated, mind you.
Oh yeah, we should also mention the circus guys were also people that like they kind of like joined with the fucking bacteria to serve them in a weird way. To add more to the story.
Or celebrate something. It's not explained.
Yeah. So the Kyoto University guys, they say like, we're trying to find a cure. Come with us. Apparently, we're one of the few people immune to the gas. So let's go try to find a cure. Even if there's only like a few of us left, let's try to find the cure. And as they're walking back to Kyoto, they find Kaori's stripped skeleton on top of her machine.
Yeah, literally her skeleton on top of a destroyed machine with like its legs torn off and it's hollowed out.
Yeah, and Tadashi says like, I want a minute alone with her, and she says, "You're free, Kaori. You're finally free to smell." The end.
Yep. It's just it's such. I love how sad that ending is, where that the story basically ends with him just being like, she's dead, and that's good. Like, she finally got what she wanted. She doesn't have to smell anymore.
Yeah. So
I want to ask final thoughts in a slightly different way, because it's our spooktacular or whatever.
Ooh.
So just the regular, would you read more of this? But also, do you think this succeeds as a horror story? Even if it doesn't succeed narratively or whatever, do you think this is a creepy story?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
I guess I have to kill Sly now.
Yeah.
I personally don't. I think that this works much better as a horror story than a story. Like, I think it's creepier than it is well told.
Okay.
Personally.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked the question, because I think it succeeds as a horror story, even if I don't think it succeeds necessarily like in the same narrative way that like Amagara Fault did.
Well, this is something I want to bring up. This is why I love horror stories. I think horror has the most I don't know what you want to say, crevices, valleys. As it has like the lowest valleys but the highest peaks of storytelling for me.
Okay.
Where horror stories have, like, people talk about Game of Thrones. Oh, Game of Thrones, you can have characters die and shit like that. All these new bold storytelling. Basically, horror stories have always been the boldest form of storytelling. Like, decades prior. The only type of story where you can have characters die. You can have downer endings. You can have and you have things come full circle, even if it's not the best feel good ending. You have things come full circle in a way that's a perfect telling of the themes and elements within it. I would recommend anyone interested in horror go check out John Carpenter movies like The Thing or In the Mouth of Madness. Those are like stories that perfectly illustrate this, where the endings and stuff perfectly tie. Like those movies could not have ended any other way than they did. And there's a lot of shitty horror stories, really shitty horror stories, where it's just like fucking Jason chases a bunch of camp counselors, and it's like, yeah, fuck this shit.
There's a lot of cliche ones. That's always my problem with the genre. Is you watch it and you get a sense of what is going to happen or what the scares are.
Exactly. Yeah, it has the most boldest storytelling, but also a lot, like any genre, you have a lot of imitators, and people just imitate the same tropes over and over again. I would say this works better as a horror story because it has a lot of unique horror elements that no other story has attempted. So it creates a new type of I would say several new types of horror. You have this gas farting horror. You have this walking fish horror. You have like these spider-like things attaching to people.
It dabbles in a lot of different things, whether it's like the insectophobia or like the body horror or the horror fish, and also like the apocalypse and having to like kill a loved one that's been infected.
Or having a loved one with bad breath.
Yeah,
exactly.
Or bad butt gas.
I would ultimately say it's a very good experiment, but it doesn't come together thematically. Like it feels like, especially after the first half, the second half feels like it's getting more convoluted, and it doesn't really build to anything. It just ends like on a thought. Like we just introduced that these germs are sentient. These germs are like it's a good experiment, but not a great story.
For me, I wish it ended right. Like, I wish the circus was cut out, and it was more about like him trying to like save Kaori, and then she gets like hooked up to the machines. Then maybe the other machines attack her or something when she's trying to defend him, because it had like how they clued in that she has some kind of like sentience remaining. That'd be cool if she was trying to protect him. Yeah. And then she died doing that, and then that's how. Because I love the ending of him looking out over the gas-infested world that these walkers now inhabit, and him saying, "You're finally like freed from this smell, this like horrible existence I'm now in." Like I love that. It's so weird at so many parts.
Especially because the first like 70% of it is him and Kaori and his uncle and like how they're all interacting. None of that is in the circus part at all. Like there is nothing in the circus scene that has to happen.
Well, I suppose so like
detached. More
background for if the gas is ghosts.
And that's not a fault of it. I think I do like if it was just if they even left the ghost part as Tadashi's hallucination. You wonder if he's just going crazy or something like that. Like when you explain horror too much, it loses its visceral horror element to it.
I like the explanation for where the legs come from, and that they could bring up stuff where it's like, oh, this boat sunk all these legs, and that's where they come from. But then other people could say like, but then where are the screws? There's no holes. These things are like.
Why do they even need the boat? Why do you need the boat to? Why didn't you explain where the boat?
Because otherwise it gets like a little too weird. Of where did you just assume that?
It already gets really weird.
Like,
I'm on Darryl's side here.
I like that because it adds like a little bit more like realism of like this is a man-made apocalypse.
But it makes it less weird. It's like one of those things where it's like Uncanny Valley with art. Like, you're getting close to an explanation, but it still makes no fucking sense. So you call more attention, let it make sense.
It kind of made sense for this idea of this germ.
For me, like, I would always
otherwise it's like, why would they smell so bad all the time? They have to be like...
Because there's fucking rotted corpse attached to them. Like, it makes sense to me. Like, I don't think you need to
then you don't have, like, all the weird stuff about always emitting gas, which I think is really cool.
I don't think you need to explain why you need to emit gas. It's a germ. You can say, like, you can say it's a germ, like, very clearly they're infected with something, like, so you don't need to explain that it's a sentient gas that forces you to fart. And like I think, like I always go to I always make comparisons between horror and comedy, and horror much like comedy, you either find it scary or you don't. Like you find it funny or you don't. Yeah. And just like horror and comedy, if you over-explain a joke, and everyone has different definitions of how much you over-explain a joke, but if you over-explain a horror element, it loses its
See,
visceral
I didn't
nature
think
to
this
it.
was overexplained. I think this was a good setup that, again, like, he continued to twist by, like, these things look alien. These aren't the
He
walkers
twisted
that
but
were
made it more
sunk.
convoluted in the process. He just kept adding more convoluted elements to it where it could have
No,
been
but
just...
I like horror stories where, like, you have a bunch of different people giving explanations, and it's never confirmed.
But there
for
is an
any of
explanation.
it.
There is a concrete explanation for these fucking first of all, the fucking legs make no sense to me. They created these fucking gas powered legs. Like, I don't think technology existed back then. Pretty surely. Like, again, tying it so close to the real world caused more attention.
It's
to these weird
I don't know,
sci-fi
it's like
elements to it.
the weird steampunk alternate history stuff.
But there's no other steampunk elements in the story besides the legs. Like, it just. I think it just.
I feel like we're at an impasse with the explanation of these legs. Like, I feel like it's okay and fair to do that, and you feel like that was too much.
Yeah, I'll just say this is my general rule. I always call back to the Night of the Living Dead trilogy, where the only explanation they ever gave for the dead coming back was when there's too much room in hell. That's when the dead start walking the earth. I can barely think of very few horror stories where they do the chemical army experiment stories, and it's actually a good story. Like, I usually it gets too much into the weeds, away from what should be the visceral human elements of it.
That sounds more personal taste than flaw.
It is. I'm just saying my personal taste. This is the point of the show.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that the latter half of the story is where we're all like, oh, okay, you're getting weird.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's just like comedies. Everyone draws their own line where it stops being funny or where it stops being scary for them.
Yeah.
Also, I want to reiterate that Ito is a great artist, and it definitely
agree.
was worth it, even if it's a silly story.
Oh
yeah,
absolutely.
and also, would you see more from this guy?
Oh, absolutely.
I want to explain that Uzumaki, I think, is his best story he's ever done, and it has no explanation for... It's basically separate stories about how spirals affect people, which is a weird explanation, but that's the entire... It's 3 volumes, and the drawings in it are really good, and it's a really weird story.
Yeah, I'm because Uzumaki's the one I always hear the most praise from.
Yep.
And Gyo's actually the one I've heard people say it's like one of his weaker works because it has like this unintentionally goofy element to it.
Yep.
But Uzumaki's the one that everyone always praises, so I'm really curious to read.
Oh yeah, definitely. I would love to do Uzumaki if we could do it for like next year, but it is 3 volumes, so it might be tough to do in an episode.
Well, we'll see how maybe we'll do a 2-parter.
Yeah.
Briefly, I just want to give a couple plugs. One, we don't mention it enough. Every episode of Divisive Issues and Oops, I Talk Politics are available at franzradio.com. It's a beautiful website.
FranzRadio.
Slide designed.
.com.
franzradio.com. And it also has links to a lot of our affiliates, like my other podcast, We'll Get It Right Next Year, which just had an episode with Sly on it.
Wow.
Oh snap!
Yeah, Sly was on it, and he was there to promote our new merch store on redbubble.com. If you search Wagirny, that's WGIRNY, that Sly drew for us. It's an awesome, awesome poster.
Yep.
And you could also get, like, throw pillows or duvet covers, because we're ridiculous.
Of that poster?
Yes.
That's pretty good.
I currently have a clock in the mail. And I also want to mention the Comrade Radio Network. I know I plugged them recently, but because it's October and it's spooky Halloween time, I want to mention Tales from the Static, who launched season 2 recently with the first episode was Candy Hearts, and it was super great. So if you haven't listened to Tales from the Static and you want some horror stories that don't have weird sentient gas circuses, that's probably a better place to go.
Yeah, it's just about zombies and like
Bad boyfriends.
Yeah. And that is all Tales from the Static episodes and all the other episodes from the network are on comraderadio.com.
For our Franz Radio, should we have like an outro like Comrade Radio where we go Franz Radio?
That's terrible.
Fuck.
That's a good
Why
audio
not just
sound.
do that? Just...
Yeah, okay, that's our new intro outro. That's all for this week. I've been really sensitive to smells.
I've been eternally laughing at every butt crack I see.
And I've been bursting, if you will, with gas.
Stay in continuity.